We've got an S10 pickup in the shop today, and we're going to show you how easy it is to install the Ridetech front and rear suspension system. The rear wishbone system comes with everything you need to complete the installation. Upper cross member, wishbone, coilovers or shockwaves depending on your application, lower bars with R-joints, and all the hardware to make the installation simple.
We'll start in the rear by removing the factory shocks and the original leaf springs. Before you actually remove anything, it's a good idea to support the rear end. To remove the driver's side leaf spring, you may have to cut the front mounting bolt. If your truck is equipped with a rear axle damper, it will need to be removed.
Because we're going to be lowering the vehicle, the stock bump stop bracket will need to be removed.
Once these brackets are removed, it's a really good idea to smooth out the rough edges and hit it with a little paint. You may be required to relocate the emissions purge solenoid. We're going to tie ours up out of the way and find a home for it after everything is complete on the install. Unbolt the rear differential vent from the cross member. If your differential cover has a gasket, it will need to be removed and resealed with RTV silicone. The tailpipe will need to be removed, but we will reposition it on the muffler after the install. Install the wishbone mount on the gas tank cross member. Then torque the bolts to 30 foot-pounds. Remove the upper shock mounting hardware, then drill the holes to accept the 3/8 bolt. Mount the upper cross member using the outer shock holes and the rearmost frame bolt hole. The new cross member has a tab that rests against the top of the OEM shock cross member. Per the instructions, measure and mark the back side of the frame, then drill your holes. Drill the remaining holes in the frame mount, then install the rest of the bolts. Torque all the cross member hardware to 30 foot-pounds. Install the supplied studs into the top 5 holes of the rear end. Apply silicone sealer to the differential cover and reinstall using the bottom 5 factory bolts. Install the axle bracket onto the studs then torque the nuts to 25 foot-pounds. Relocate the brake line onto the mounting tab on the back of the axle bracket. On this wishbone, we've installed Delrin bushings. Unlike poly, they don't require any lubrication and they are stiction-free. The wishbone is offset, so you'll want to make sure that this long side is towards the driver's side of the vehicle. With the bolts installed in the wishbone, tighten all the hardware to eliminate any gaps. Install the axle mounts onto the differential housing using the supplied U-bolts. And torque the nuts to 60 foot-pounds. Install the lower shock mounts onto the axle bracket. Install the spacers into the R-joints, then bolt your lower bars in place. You may be required to trim the corner off of the charcoal canister bracket to clear the wishbone. On our truck, we relocated the vent solenoid onto the front of the charcoal canister. We used the existing hole from the vent solenoid to mount our differential vent. Using the supplied hardware and spacers, install the coilovers onto the shock brackets. On this application, we mount the shocks with the adjusters down for easy access. Our truck's getting a coilover system, but if you were installing air, the shockwave mounts in the same position using the same hardware as the coilover. Once all the parts were installed, we were able to reposition the stock tailpipe and reattach it to the muffler. The front system includes upper and lower control arms with ball joints and Delrin bushings, a set of coilovers or shockwaves depending on what you're installing, inner and outer tie rod ends, and a heavy-duty 1 3/8 sway bar with Delrin lined bushings. At the front of the vehicle, we'll remove the spindles, shocks, sway bar, and upper and lower control arms. Since the Ridetech kit comes with new inner and outer tie rod ends, we'll remove these as well. The Ridetech shocks for this application use a Delrin swivel ball for the upper mount. We'll need to enlarge the upper shock mount holes to accommodate the mounts. The coil spring locating tabs are going to need to be trimmed to keep them from hitting the upper coil spring retainer. Insert the coilover stud top into the factory hole in the frame. Install the upper Delrin ball and cap, then tighten the nut. Mount the lower control arms into position using the supplied hardware. With the bearing spacers installed, mount the coilover to the lower control arm.
These coilovers have 24 clicks of rebound adjustment. Start out by turning the adjuster clockwise until it stops, then you can back it out 12 clicks. Once you drive the vehicle, you can adjust the rebound dampening to get the ride quality you desire. Just like the rear of our S10, we're installing coilovers on the front. The shockwave installs in the same manner using the same hardware, but there is a little bit of trimming on the spring pocket, and we detail that in the instructions.
Position the upper control arm into place and fasten to the frame. Because the Ridetech system gives you a lowered ride height, we include an upper ball joint that has an extended stud to optimize the geometry. Assemble the outer tie rod ends and install the inner tie rod ends to the drag link. Apply a small amount of anti-seize to the threads and install the adjuster. The Ridetech True Turn system also includes extended outer tie rod studs to virtually eliminate bump steer. Apply a small amount of red Loctite to the sway bar mounting bracket bolts and bolt the bracket into location. Install the Delrin liners onto the bar. The liners reduce stiction and eliminate the need for lubrication. With the bushings and mount brackets in place, loosely install the sway bar on the frame rails. Install the end links and tighten the sway bar mounting bolts. Center the sway bar and install the locking collars to the inside of the sway bar bushings. Now we're ready to set our initial ride height and install our wheels and tires. Once we finalize our ride height and perform an alignment, we'll take the truck out for a road test. Out on the track, we noticed a drastic improvement in ride quality, handling, and stability.